everyone, Miss Meek here, and today we're going to talk about dividing fractions by fractions. So we're not just dividing fractions by just anything, we're going to be dividing fractions by other fractions. And we're also going to talk about how to divide mixed numbers as well. So we'll throw that in at the end there. All right, but first of all, we need to review one of the most important things about dividing fractions. What is the reciprocal? Now, I mentioned this in a previous video, dividing fractions and whole numbers. So if you are not sure about what a reciprocal is, I would check out that video. But briefly, just to kind of review reciprocals, a reciprocal is a number that when multiplied to a fraction or to another number, it gives us the product of 1. So for example, number 1 here, 3/4. If I multiply 3/4, if I take 3/4 and I multiply it times 4/3, I get 12/12, which equals 1. So our reciprocal is this number right here that when I multiply by it, it gives me a 1 for a product. So real quickly here, we're going to go through and we're going to name the reciprocals of all these different fractions. So for number 2, 9/10, our reciprocal would be 10/9. For number 3, remember this 17 written as a fraction is 17/1. So our reciprocal would be 1/17. For number 4, we have a mixed number there. So briefly, very quickly, I'm going to change this into an improper fraction so I can find that reciprocal. 2 times 1 is 2 plus 1 is 3. So this is 3/2. So our reciprocal would be 2/3. And then lastly, we have that improper fraction there, 11/10. Our reciprocal would be 10/11. Again, if you need more detail about reciprocals and how they work, please check out my dividing fractions by whole numbers video, okay? Dividing fractions and whole numbers video. It goes into reciprocals in a little bit more detail. Now, let's jump into dividing. Let's review our steps. Our first steps is that we are not going to divide. We are actually going to multiply. So we are going to multiply by that reciprocal that we just talked about. So my first step here is that I'm going to change my problem to a multiplication problem. So there is my multiplication dot. When I set my numbers up, my first fraction is perfectly fine the way it is. I don't need to do anything to him. However, for step 2, check it out. We want to multiply by the reciprocal. That means that I need the reciprocal of that second fraction, that 3/4 right here. So I am going to multiply by the reciprocal, which would be 4/3. And then step 3 is that we are going to multiply and simplify if needed. So now that my problem is set up, I'm going to multiply like normal. So 1 times 4 is 4. 2 times 3 is 6. I can tell that both of these numbers are even, and so I'm going to simplify it by dividing by 2. And I end up with 2/3 as my final answer. All right, so that is how we divide fractions. Those are our steps, so let's practice. Here are some practice problems. All right, again, step 1 is I'm changing this to a multiplication problem. My first fraction is fine the way it is. Remember, my whole process is I want to multiply by the reciprocal. The reciprocal is going to be of this second fraction right here, and so I am going to multiply not by 1/4, but 4/1, that reciprocal. After I do that, my next step is just to multiply straight across. 6 times 4 is 24. 7 times 1 is 7. I end up with an improper fraction, so I have to ask myself, how many times does 7 fit into 24? Well, that's 3 times. 7 times 3 is 21. That means I'm going to have 3 out of 7 left over, and there is my final answer. So you can get mixed numbers as your answer. Let's take a look at number 2. My first step again is I'm multiplying by the reciprocal. So that first fraction is perfectly fine the way it is. And then I want to multiply by the reciprocal, and so I am going to find the reciprocal of 3/5. The reciprocal of 3/5 is 5/3. So it's that fraction. We're kind of flipping it upside down there to find the reciprocal. My last step is I'm going to multiply straight across. 5 times 1 is 5. 8 times 3 is 24. I'm going to check to see if I can simplify that. I cannot. It's already in simplest terms. And so my final answer is 5/24. So again, we're rewriting the problem to multiply by the reciprocal. Let's take a look at what happens if I have mixed numbers. If I have mixed numbers, I don't want to divide with them the way they are. I want to turn them into improper fractions. So I'm going to do that real quick. This first one is going to be 2 times 1, which is 2, plus 1 is 3. So this is going to be a 3/2, 3/2. Step 1 is I want to multiply. I don't want to divide. I'm going to multiply by the reciprocal. The reciprocal of 1/6 is 6/1. And then my last step is to multiply across. I have 3 times 6, which is 18, and 2 times 1, which is 2. All right, I got to simplify this. Again, we always have to be open to finding equivalent forms. And one way that I can find equivalent forms is simplifying my fraction into lowest terms. I'm going to divide here by 2 on the numerator and the denominator. And when I do that, I get 9/1. We all know that 9/1 is the same as 9. So my answer to this problem is actually a whole number. It's 9. All right, and then for number 4 here, we have 2 mixed numbers. So both of those mixed numbers need to be turned into improper fractions. I'm going to rewrite my problem over here to the side. 5 times 3 is 15, plus 2 is 17, so that's 17/5, divided by 9 times 1 is 9, plus 1 is 10. So here's my new problem, how I'm dividing it and everything. And now we can go through our steps. I don't want to divide. I want to multiply by the reciprocal. So my first fraction is totally fine the way it is, but then I want to multiply by the reciprocal. The reciprocal of 10/9 is 9/10, so 9/10. When I go to multiply, I'm going to multiply straight across. 17 times 9. Ooh, I do not know that one off the top of my head, so I'm going to do some scratch work over here. 7 times 9 is 63, and 9 times 1 is 9, plus 6 is 15. So this is 153. And on the bottom there, 5 times 10 is 50. Now that is definitely an improper fraction, so I'm going to ask myself, how many times does 50 fit into 153? And that is 3 times. 50 times 3 is 150, so that means that I'm going to have 3 out of 50 left over, and that is going to be my final answer. It's already reduced to simplest terms, so I am good to go there. All right, so that is our process for dividing fractions by fractions, and also for dividing whole mixed numbers by mixed numbers. I hope that this clears up any confusion that you may have and that you've learned something new. I'll talk to you later. Bye.